They said Ted Bundy died in 1989. But 30 years later, in the archives of ADX Florence, the most secure prison in America, his name resurfaced, typed in cold black ink across a restricted FBI memo marked legacy file. If stories like this fascinate you, hit subscribe, because this one only gets darker. The story began with a transfer. A high-level inmate, sealed behind layers of bulletproof glass, had requested access to historical criminal profiles as part of a rehabilitation psychology study. His name was Dr. Alan Cross, a former criminal profiler who'd once assisted the FBI on serial offender cases. After being convicted of a violent assault that ended his career, he was sent to ADX Florence, the same prison that held the ghosts of America's darkest minds. Cross wasn't just studying the files. He was obsessed with one in particular, Ted Bundy's. The FBI had digitized Bundy's original confession tapes, and Cross claimed he was using them for behavioral mapping. But to the guards, it looked more like worship. They'd see him scribbling late into the night, whispering to himself, replaying Bundy's recorded voice over and over until the tape hissed like a ghost. ADX Florence is a place built for silence. Every sound is measured, every step monitored. The cells are concrete vaults, 12 by 7 feet, with no windows and 23 hours of solitude each day. Even among the nation's most dangerous, Cross stood out, not for violence, but for what he was trying to understand. He began writing letters. Not to family, but to a private journalist in Seattle, a woman who'd once covered Bundy's execution. He told her that within the Bundy archives, he'd found something no one noticed before, a series of coded notes, written by Bundy himself in margins and letters that the Bureau never made public. Cross believed Bundy had hidden a message, not about his crimes, but about others he didn't confess to. The journalist never responded. But her office received an unmarked envelope 2 weeks later. Inside was a photocopy of a prison request form, Cross's signature at the bottom, and a handwritten message. He knew more than he ever said. And someone here doesn't want it found. That same week, Cross vanished from the general population block. Officially, he was transferred for psychological evaluation. Unofficially, no one saw him leave his cell. The guards said the cameras malfunctioned that night, a rare blackout that lasted exactly 27 minutes. When the system rebooted, Cross's cell was empty. On his steel bed lay one sheet of lined paper, written in shaky pen strokes. The legacy isn't in what he did. It's in what they kept. The warden ordered an internal lockdown. Every file Cross accessed was confiscated and reclassified under a new tag, Ted Bundy Legacy, ADX. And just like that, the story was buried, until one of the guards, racked with guilt years later, broke silence and mailed a copy of that final note to a local newspaper in Colorado. No one believed it was real. But inside ADX, whispers started to spread again, that somewhere in the prison archives, Bundy's shadow still lingered. And Dr. Alan Cross might never have left. By the time investigators arrived at ADX Florence, the trail was already cold. Dr. Alan Cross's disappearance was logged as a clerical error, his digital record quietly deleted, his possessions sealed in evidence storage. Officially, he didn't exist anymore. Unofficially, his name echoed down the concrete corridors like a ghost that refused to rest. The men inside ADX talk through vents, tiny slits of air that carry more truth than any official report. From one cell to another, whispers travel. One inmate said he'd seen Cross move during the blackout, escorted by 2 guards who didn't wear standard uniforms. Another claimed Cross wasn't taken out at all, that they walled up a section of the medical wing, and that's where he remained. At ADX, reality bends under pressure. Even guards start to question what they see after months of isolation. The flicker of fluorescent lights, the rhythmic clank of the meal slot, everything becomes a code. And that's what Cross had studied, the codes of confinement. Before he vanished, he had begun making connections between Bundy's supposed confession codes and the Bureau's early behavioral files. He believed Bundy had been feeding information, not about himself, but about someone else, a second killer whose methods predated Bundy's own crimes. Cross had called it the echo theory. 2 months after the blackout, a new inmate arrived at ADX under federal protection, a retired bureau archivist named Walter Raines. He'd been subpoenaed in an unrelated investigation involving missing evidence from old serial case files. But Raines knew exactly why he'd been placed there. On his second day, a folded scrap of paper was slid under his cell door. It read, "You sealed what you didn't understand. It's still here." Raines reported it to staff, but by morning, the note was gone. Surveillance showed nothing. No guards, no inmates. Just a shadow that lingered too long outside his door. Meanwhile, the journalist in Seattle, Jessica Myers, was still haunted by Cross's letters. When the warden refused her interview requests, she filed a Freedom of Information Act request for the Bundy legacy files. 2 weeks later, she received a call, not from the Bureau, but from a restricted number. A calm voice said, "Miss Myers, you should stop asking about Alan Cross. He didn't go missing. He found something. And he's not supposed to share it." Then the line went dead. Back in Florence, the guards began to notice strange entries in the prison's access logs. Someone was logging into the system under Cross's old credentials, after midnight, from inside the restricted archive room. But that room had been sealed since the blackout. One officer, a rookie named Eric Daniels, was assigned to check it out. His flashlight beam cut through the dust and silence of the archive corridor. Inside, the lights flickered like static. On the central table lay a box marked Bundy, 1978 interviews. The tapes had been replaced. In their place were new recordings, modern, digital files labeled simply, Florence Audio Log 2023. Daniels pressed play. Static. Then, a voice. Calm. Precise. Unmistakably human. They thought they buried it with him. But legacy doesn't die. It adapts. Daniels froze. The voice wasn't Bundy's. It was Dr. Alan Cross. He stumbled backward, reaching for the radio, just as the lights went out. The next morning, Daniels filed a report. But when he returned to the archive, the tapes were gone again. All that remained was a fingerprint smudge on the glass, one the Bureau later confirmed didn't match anyone currently alive. And somewhere deep in the prison's network, another file appeared, time-stamped at 3:17 a.m., and signed, unreadable. Its name, Echo_3_final. 3 weeks after the archive incident, ADX Florence entered an unannounced lockdown. Every cell sealed, every light dimmed. Officially, it was for a routine systems inspection. Unofficially, agents from Washington had arrived, silent, expressionless, and armed with orders to confiscate every remaining document tied to Bundy legacy or Echo_3_final. The prison's internal network was scrubbed overnight. Cameras rerouted. Files deleted. Yet one encrypted folder refused to be erased. It reappeared each time they tried, a ghost file buried inside the system, blinking with a single line of text, "Legacy confirmed." Jessica Myers, still chasing answers from the outside, got a final message through an anonymous email routed through foreign servers. Attached was an audio file, distorted, filtered through layers of static. But the voice was unmistakable, Alan Cross. They kept studying him long after he died. They wanted to understand the pattern, not stop it. And when I found it, they silenced me. The pattern wasn't his, it was theirs. She sent the clip to a forensic audio expert, who confirmed it was recorded inside ADX, weeks after Cross's disappearance. The metadata showed coordinates deep beneath the administrative wing, an area supposedly decommissioned decades earlier. Inmates had a name for that place. They called it the basement. A sublevel for experimental isolation, where certain prisoners were sent, but never logged back in. Cross had mentioned it once in his letters, describing a room with no sound, no reflection, like talking inside a mind that isn't yours. When Myers tried to go public, she found her email access revoked, her newsroom credentials suspended. The Bureau released a single statement: there is no ongoing investigation related to Dr. Alan Cross. Records indicate he was transferred to a medical facility in 2017 and died of cardiac arrest. No date. No documentation. No remains. Months later, a retired guard, Eric Daniels, was discharged on medical leave. He'd started having nightmares of the archive corridor, a voice whispering his name through the vents, the metallic hum of something still recording. One night, he drove out to the desert highway overlooking ADX Florence. The prison lights flickered faintly against the mountain backdrop. He turned on his phone, opened his voice recorder, and spoke quietly into the cold air. "I don't think he's gone. Whatever he found in Bundy's files, it's not about one man. It's about a system built to repeat itself." Cross called it the inheritance of darkness. Maybe he was right. Then he turned off the recorder and left his phone on the roadside barrier. The next morning, state troopers found it still running. The last seconds of the recording captured a faint hum, then a voice, layered under static. "The legacy isn't in what he did. It's in what they kept." The same words Cross left on his bed years before. When federal investigators recovered the file, the timestamp revealed something no one could explain, recorded exactly 34 minutes after Daniels had walked away. Today, the Bundy legacy files remain sealed. But whispers persist among guards, journalists, and analysts who've seen fragments of Echo_3_final. They say it's not a confession or a conspiracy, just an observation, written in Cross's precise handwriting. Evil is never buried. It's only cataloged. And beneath that line, a final note: end of recording. If you think this story was intense, the next one will leave you speechless. Subscribe for more true crime stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat.